driving force behind the reunion of the band? Was it, what the hell, let's try it and tour and see what happens, or was it a serious commitment to staying together and recording and all?
Oh, it's definitely a serious commitment to stay together. I don't think there'd be any point in doing it just for like a one quick tour. That's been offered to us before, and quite frankly it didn't appeal to me ever. I've never wanted to be part of an oldies band, and that kind of strikes of let's make some more money out of the old name, you know. And we've all been musicians that have been, although we've been apart for 11 years, we've been highly active in music. We've all been on the road in different bands and various ventures, and I have no wish to retire, and that you know, doing an oldies thing is one sure way of saying goodbye to everyone. Had to be a new, fresh approach, had to be a new album, had to be new music, and we really had to gain a new audience, not just the people that remembered us from their college days, you know. And thankfully that's what's happened. We have a new audience, and we have a reason to do another album and another tour, which is what we're going to be doing next.
What is the difference, or is there any difference between the audiences of the 70s and the audiences of the 80s? Like the kids are in high school today versus me when I was in high school and heard you in the 70s.
I don't think there's any difference. They're obviously different people. They're younger than you or I are. Well, actually, I don't know about you.
True, they're younger than both of us.
I think people today go to see a rock and roll band or a concert or a festival or whatever it may be for the same reason that they did back in the late 60s, early 70s. I think rock and roll is one of the few events where you can get a lot of people together and have a really good time. And I think people like to be involved in that. They like to get excited by music, but they also like to get excited by the fact that they're all in one big building, all jammed up together, and it's like a party atmosphere, and everyone has a good time. And I don't think that's changed at all. I think it's the same thing.
Along those lines, the Texas Jam has become, at least in this area, not just a concert, you know. I mean, it's an event. It's the big blowout of the summer, pretty much. Had you heard anything about it before?
Not a lot. I mean, I knew it existed, and I knew it had been done a few times. It's actually been done far more times than I knew about. When it was offered to us, we kind of jumped at it, because we've finished the tour. We've been touring since November, and we've done the world. We did America earlier in the year, and we just wanted to do just a few more summer gigs back in the States. The last tour we did was Europe. We went all over Europe, and the Texas Jam just came as the last gig, and it's I think a happy accident, because we started the American tour in Texas, and at that point we really didn't know. We'd just done Australia, which was very good, but we really didn't know how the American public were going to accept us. And so we started in Texas with a few anticipations, but I mean, it worked out great.
It was a sellout here when you were in Dallas.
Well, yeah. But it's nice to come back and finish the tour here as well. It seems to round the whole thing off nicely.
Now, you understand that you will be playing in temperatures of 100 degrees and up.
Well, we have the advantage of at least having a dressing room that we can go to and having drinks and stuff like that. And the people I really feel sorry for are the crowd. I mean, I'm sure most Texans are going to be prepared for it because they've seen it and they've been there before. But it's going to be really hot, and I hear they're going to be sprayed down, and special facilities are going to be laid on to kind of cool them off. So I think they're going to have much more of a hard time than we are. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going on in the evening, so I think we'll be okay.
I think it's refreshing about the Jam in particular that performers' egos are pretty much put aside, that you know, you're on a bill with a number of bands and everybody plays with everybody, and it's fun and interesting, and it seems to me that sometimes egos get in the way, you know.
Well, egos get in the way of a lot of things, not just in festivals. I think in this particular instance we didn't know anything about the political wranglings back, you know, in the days when they were setting it up. So we weren't part of that. We were just offered the thing. We were headlining, and there's no question of it. But I don't think anyone really headlines in a festival. As you said, it's everyone gets together and they play together. And I think that's a great thing.
I like the fact that Deep Purple today has, you know, its wealth of new material, but still you can hear some of your old stuff, which, you know, it's really nice for me that in concert you're a good mix. What's your philosophy about that? There's some bands that you'll never hear anything from their first couple of albums when they come out with a new one, you know?
I think it would have been almost impossible for us to go back on the stage and not play Highway Star, Smoke on the Water, or Lazy, or some of the others. But by the same token, it was very important for us that we did present our new music. And in fact, it's very nice to know that when we play Perfect Strangers or Knocking at Your Back Door, that they go down just as well as some of the old songs. That makes everything worthwhile for me.
Is there any kind of new philosophy that's come out of the band being back together? Have you brought anything from the last years that you've been apart into it?
Philosophy is a heavy word.
Well, I mean,
we don't
you know.
think about it that way. I think 11 years apart, and you're bound to have received a lot of influences and a lot of experience. And I don't think it was consciously brought to bear on the new Deep Purple, but obviously unconsciously it's going to be there. It's very difficult for me, objectively, to tell you what it is. You know, I think we're probably better musicians now than we were then. Listening to the old recordings and listening to us now, I think technically we're better. We're much more professional. As a matter of fact, I looked at a concert we did that was filmed, one of the only concerts that was filmed from the old days. It was early '72 in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I couldn't believe it. We were so sloppy. People wandering on stage. In between songs there'd be a bit of tuning up, smoke a cigarette, have a drink. You know. Occasionally you'd acknowledge the audience. I mean, it's not like that now. It's much more high-powered, and you know, we're more conscious of our performing art.
On the other hand, is there anything you miss about the 70s?
My youth?
The last 10 years back?
No, I think actually I enjoy playing more now than I used to. I think personally I was a lot younger and a lot more inexperienced, and I didn't really enjoy it as much as I do now. Well, it seems to me in my memory that I didn't. I think when you're younger you tend to worry about things that you don't really need to worry about. The older you get, you kind of take life a bit more in your stride. So I have much more fun now than I did then.
Is it easier for new bands now, bands just starting out, to make it? I mean, is the key making a good video and getting it on MTV?
There's different circumstances, but I think when I first started in the band, which is the early '60s, it was almost impossible to get a record deal. There were so many bands around, there was so much competition, and show business seemed to be a locked door, except to those that had some lucky break or knew someone. And it took me a long time. I mean, I was playing in bands for almost 10 years before I finally made it. And I don't think it's changed that much now. I get a lot of tapes from bands, and I talk to a lot of new bands. And they're stuck in this circuit of doing the clubs and playing top 40. And that's very difficult to get out of. You know, it seems to be the same kind of closed door. I wouldn't like to say it's easier. No, I think it's always going to be hard, because it's one of those businesses that attracts a lot of people, because there's the promise of a lot of money for doing what you like to do. So it's attractive to a lot of people, and therefore there's going to be a lot of competition.
Do you think they get into it more for the money now than they used to, than the love of the work?
Well, that's a deep question. Most of the bands whose tapes I listen to tend to sound like what you hear on the radio. There's very few people who are brave enough to stand up and say, I'm an artist, this is what I do, take it or leave it. Most people seem to bend themselves over backwards to get on the radio or to get on TV now. And I think that's kind of a shame. That's going to eventually kill a lot of creativity.
One more question. What are your next projects? Can you line out anything for me?
Yeah, dinner. Getting through dinner is going to be a major achievement. We're going to take, as I said, some time off. I think in the old days we worked far too hard. We just ploughed ourselves back into another project as soon as we finished a tour. It seemed like we hardly had time to get our laundry done before we were back out on the road or back in the studio. This time we're much more in charge of our own careers, and we're going to take some time off. We're going to take 2-3 months off and just start thinking about the next album. We don't go into the studios prepared with lots of songs, but we do go in with a few kind of a riff or an odd chord sequence or something, and that's what we'll be thinking about during this time off. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to do nothing. I'm just going to sit at home.